Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Eric and I like to read, and today I'm going to be doing my November wrap up. So, as many of you guys know, I had a pretty ambitious TBR that was set for me by Markus. Markus chose 8 books for me to read over the month of November, 9 if I chose to read both Sarah J. Maas books. Well, spoiler, I chose to read neither of Sarah J. Maas's books. Sorry, I know that a lot of you guys in the comments were telling me to read those books, and I was intending to get to them, but I read the books first that I knew I was going to enjoy, and I was a little hesitant to go towards those books. I still want to get to them eventually, but for the main part, I read the books that I knew for sure I was going to enjoy, and they were going to light a fire in my heart. So now we're going to talk about those books. So I actually only managed to read 5 books in the month of November, which is a little sad, but I was also spending a lot of November preparing for the Reindeer Readathon and getting everything ready, and I'm still doing that as it goes. It's a very busy time for me being one of the hosts and also the co-creator of it, so it's very busy. So I'm trying to read as much as I can, but anyways, so in the month of November, I read 5 books. The first book that I read was Limited Wish by Mark Lawrence, and I chose this one to read first because it's such a short book, and I was like, oh, okay, I could finish this really quickly. Lo and behold, it took me a week to read this short book again. Just like the first one, took me a week. Um, I have no excuse for that. I was very slow getting to this book and slow going through it. It has the same vibes as the first one. It deals a lot with Dungeons and Dragons, which I did enjoy. Although I did notice in this one there's not as much. It's still a very present thing in the storyline, but in this one it wasn't there as much. But there are other elements that come up in this book that add some interesting flares to it, and I did really enjoy that. There are some new characters in this book that I was very fond of, and there are some other characters that I was unsure of. But I can't really say much about this book because it's such a short book, and pretty much anything I say about it is going to give away some part of the plot line. So, yeah. Basically, this is a continuation of a series, and I did enjoy it. And I ended up giving this book a 3.5 out of 5. This one had a different sci-fi element to it than the first book, which I did find really interesting. And the characters did have to make some difficult decisions, which I don't necessarily agree with the decisions they made, but anyways, that's just my own opinion. I'm curious to see how the last book in this trilogy wraps it all up, because some of the decisions they made in this one are going to affect that book, and I'm just curious to pick it up and see how it all ends. Next up, I read Half the World, and this is the next book in the Shattered Sea trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. This book, I was kind of a little hesitant at the beginning because I didn't really like the main character. I thought that she was really annoying and kind of full of herself. And as the book went on, I grew to love this character so much. I remember going to Markus and being like, yeah, I find her annoying as hell. And then I went to him after I finished the book and I was like, so I totally did a flip there. I love this character now, and her development throughout the whole book was amazing. It was incredible, and I just wanted more. This book has a lot of cool fight scenes in it. It has the mentor trope, if you like that kind of thing. And there was just a lot of interesting twists that I did not see coming, which really brought up the book for me. So I ended up giving this a 4.5 out of 5 because I am so excited to read the last book of this series. And what was interesting about this book is that the characters from the first book are actually more of side characters in this book, and it kind of follows 2 new characters that are kind of intertwined in the whole story. It's really interesting. So you do get to see some characters that you loved from the first one, but then you're also following these new characters. That may have been why I didn't really like her at the beginning, because I was like, oh, well, I wanted to follow the main character from the first book and get to see them more, whereas I was just given this new character that's kind of like in your face, and I just like, I don't know, that may have been the reason why, but besides the point, I grew to love her. Her character development was chef's kiss, fantastic, and I really want to read the third one now just to see like what's gonna happen. I also really liked this book because it's kind of like a medieval setting with I say fantasy elements to it because there's not really like any magic, but there's like hints at magic in the past. And so that in itself is interesting because you're trying to discover like what happened in the past while following along with these characters and their different like sea trek voyages that they go on. A lot of it is like taking place on a boat, which is really cool too. Because I find that there's not a lot of books that I've read that has that. So it added more elements to it that I was more favoring this time. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to finishing this trilogy as well. Next up, I read Gemina, which is the second book in the Illuminae Files trilogy. And yes, I bet you guys can guess what rating I gave this one. Yeah, it was another 5-star because I think that honestly the writing duo of Jay Kristoff and Amy Kaufman is like the perfect writing duo for me. I just really enjoy their books. I find them so fascinating and so fun. And this one did not disappoint at all. So this one's set on a space station following a different set of characters. They have their whole other situation happening. They're on lockdown. Their station is being hijacked by like space mercenaries. And then there are some other things happening on the station that also adds like a wrench into certain plans and makes it way more intense. And I was just like, I was blown away by this book. Every time I stopped reading it, I didn't want to. Like, I would have to stop reading it to go to sleep, but I wouldn't want to do that. And I just like, every time I picked it up again, I was so drawn in and so excited about this book. The new characters in this book were really well done, and I found myself cheering them on the whole way through, trying to like hope that they would succeed in everything they did. And yeah, like this book is so awesome. I honestly don't know how to like summarize it any better than that. It's just so intense, and I can imagine this being an amazing audiobook. I've been told the audiobooks for this series are fantastic, and I believe it based on just like how I read it visually. Hearing all of that would be so cool. Honestly, if you want a book that's going to get your heart pumping and it's set in space, this is the book for you. I mean, read Illuminae first because that one's really good as well, and it leads right into this one, and then you can pick up this one. I am so excited. I'm probably going to be, well, yeah, I said in my TBR, I'm going to be reading Obsidio in December, and that's definitely going to be one that I'm going to prioritize because this book was just so good. The first book was just so good. I really want to see how they like tie it all together in the last book. That's pretty much what I'm saying for all of these books right now, that I want to see how they tie it all together, but I really do. And I am kind of known for liking the middle book the most in a lot of series. For example, Divergent, I really liked Insurgent the most, and a lot of people are like, that's the worst book there. So that. And then Hunger Games, I liked Catching Fire the most. Also, this is one that people are probably going to like shake their heads at me, but when I read Twilight for the first time, I liked New Moon the most, and everyone hates that book. So yeah, I have different opinions on books apparently, but I think that a lot of people really liked this one. I've heard pretty much everyone saying that this one was the best, and I can agree. So far, it has been the best. And based on the writing duo that I just talked about and how much I love their books, I also read Aurora Rising by Jay Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. And can you guess what I rated it? Yeah, this one also got a 5 stars. I just really enjoyed this book and how all of the characters had to come together as a ragtag team. Well, they were kind of like more put together as a ragtag team, but they worked well together, and it was like a found family kind of book, which I really, really enjoyed. Also, it's in space, and I like any books that are really set in space, or all of the books that I've read in space so far, I have enjoyed quite a bit. But there were other elements to this book that I did not see coming, and there was like one part that I was very confused about, and I'm wondering where they're going to go with it, but I'm also at the same time like super intrigued about it. and I really want to know where they're going to go with it. For anybody that has read this book, Cal is definitely my favorite character because he's awesome. But I also like the quiet, like scientific, analytical girl on their team who her chapters are like one page every time, or sometimes her chapters are one sentence and it's just like what she's thinking. I think she's hilarious. But a lot of the characters in this book were really good. For anyone that doesn't know what this book is about, it's essentially about a guy named Tyler who is out on one of his routine like space flights when he comes upon a ship that is out there in space. He finds a girl that's like in cryosleep, and she's the only one on the ship that is alive. The rest of the people on there died, and she survived somehow. So he rescues her, and then from there, it's kind of like her, like it switches perspectives going through the book, so you get perspectives from like all different characters of this like misfit ragtag team, and she is one of the like more main characters where you get to kind of figure out her backstory and what happened to her before obviously her being discovered by Tyler. There are different races of aliens, and some of them are on their team. You get to learn about the different histories of the different alien races as well, and that takes a big part of the book. It comes into play quite often, and it's so cool to just learn about all these different like societies having to coexist together and work together for like a new future, or like this new future that they've set for themselves in space. I don't know, it's just really cool. The book does keep you on your toes for a lot of it, and it's just I never felt bored reading this book at all. I felt like it was constantly go go go, and I really enjoyed that about the book because at the same time it's giving you a lot of information, but like in bite-sized chunks, so you like learn as you go. It's not like a big info dumping book. And so I'm really excited to see what happens with the next book in this series. I think it's gonna be really good, but yeah, I don't know when I'm gonna read it, but I am very excited to get to it. And then finally, I read An Ember in the Ashes. This is one that everybody was saying in the comments to read, so yes, I did read this one. We also, well, I kind of managed to convince my book club to read this as our book club choice, so that's kind of cool too. And we're gonna have a live chat about it. We're not sure on the date yet, but it is coming up sometime soon. And boy, do I have some theories. So I'm really excited to do that live chat where I can dive into spoilers and talk about the things that I'm predicting are going to happen in the second book, or some things that I'm thinking happened in this book, but like you don't know. So yeah, for anybody that doesn't know what this book is about, it's about two different characters, and it switches back and forth between their perspectives. One is, I say Elias, but it could be Elias. He's been training at this academy his entire life. He is essentially a soldier, and he's working his way up in the ranks. Now, Laia is the other character, and her brother was captured and brought in to their like prison system because of treason. And so in order for Laia to try and save her brother, she needs to go undercover as a spy in this academy that Elias is at, so that she can find out things for the resistance and help them so they can help her rescue her brother. I feel like I'm really like butchering this, but I'm trying to like explain it to the best of my abilities. So it has two very different storylines that you follow along with, and it's just really interesting to see like the two characters and how much they're different. There's a lot of like cool action scenes in this book, and there's also a lot of political intrigue that I was really drawn into with all the different characters and like their different power roles. And so I thought that was really interesting. And also the relationships in this book are pretty intense. I also really like the character Helene. I think she was my favorite character of the entire book. And I think that she deserves like her own offshoot book because she was just fantastic. The whole time I was reading this book, I was like, she's a really good person. I really like Helene. And yeah, I just like right to the very end, I loved her as a character. I liked her more than the main character of the book, to be honest. But I did find that all the main characters were very well rounded, and they did come together to make like a very interesting book. This book also gave me like somewhat Hunger Game vibes, very slightly. There are some elements to the book that like drew that out for me, and I did like that a lot. I ended up giving this book a 5 out of 5 stars. It was really good. I'm really excited to read more of this series and see what happens with it because, boy, was that ending intense. And yeah, I need to pick up the next ones. And that's all the books that I managed to read in the month of November. Thank you to Markus for picking up my books because he gave me all really good books. Like most of them were 5 stars, so that's awesome. I will get to Sarah J. Maas eventually, guys. I promise. I will do my best to get to one of her books eventually. If you guys want to support me, I have a Patreon and a Coffee page, which I'll put in the description down below, as well as a link to my bookmarks if you want to purchase one of those. You guys know the drill. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that bell notification button so you get notified when I post videos. I post my videos on Monday and Thursday. And until next time, keep on reading.